Turn on our little green buttons and call this meeting to order.
I don't know.
No green button for
You're
you.
sharing.
An awful lot. Prepared.
All righty. Do you want me to do roll call or do you wish to do it?
I'll do it.
What?
I'll do it.
All right. Well, then let's get started.
Are we ready? So roll call, we have Kathy Cavalier here. Dario Scalia. Frank Falcone,
Here.
Chris Wilson,
Present?
Tiffany DeMayo. Donna McCall absent and Ken Lane absent.
I did try reaching out to Ken, but I did not reach him. I'll need to get a phone number to try. All righty. Do we want to do a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? Want to lead that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
All righty. Do we want to approve the agenda for this evening?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All righty.
Here she is.
We have a late comer.
Answer me, so she must be coming.
Can add Donna to the present list.
Got it.
All righty. I thought for a second you were like our public coming into this, have a discussion, but
They're on their
Alas.
way.
we will skip past public comment because we do not have anybody here to comment today. Do we want to approve the minutes from the previous meeting? Or can I make a motion that we approve the minutes for the previous meeting?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the previous minutes are approved. Our first new business is an update on 6 North Newtown Street Road. It seems like even though that was the first property we heard, it never got sent to the supervisors. And that's what I got from the email with Heather.
So it never reached, you mean the first step?
That's my understanding.
Oh, okay. I thought there was an update from somewhere else. I didn't know it was
No.
discussing it. Okay.
And if we, assuming we confirm that that's the case, then I guess I'll just write it up. And we can submit it.
As if we
As
just
if we
had
just did
the,
it, yeah.
because you have all the information, right?
Um,
And Connie has a copy if not, because she wrote it up and sent, she was the one who sent it.
well, I wrote up I did a preliminary write-up for it. I don't have your application.
Right. I have
So-
the original here.
Okay, so I'll email you my preliminary write-up.
Okay.
And if you could look over what I have and fill in what I'm missing,
Mm-hmm.
and I will, I'll try to send you some of the other ones as well.
Yeah, you may have to pull up the meeting minutes for the response by the owner.
If
That
I
would be
if
Tiffany
I
would
can,
have
if I can go
those.
far back, if I can go that far back.
Tiffany will have them.
I have all of them.
Okay,
So you want me to find them minutes on 6 North Newtown Street Road?
yeah, I don't even actually know when we did that.
I'll find it.
Sometime.
It was fairly early on.
Mhm.
In the winter, February maybe.
And then if we need any other information, I know that Frank's did a look through of the building and can fill stuff in if we don't have it. We briefly talked last session about the possibility that there were grants available to update the historic survey.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about that, I think the Historical Society might be.
Do we have any further information on that, or what do we need to do to investigate it?
I sent information to Lisa Borowski's office to inquire about the grants. They were going to look into what would be available appropriate for that, because the actual person who recommended it works for the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission, the regional director. She said that they update them frequently. The grant would supply a person to do all the work because there's a lot of work involved. I looked it up, and to complete the survey on each property, you really need a person that's in a paid position to do that. So that's why the grant, because there's so many properties.
So
Okay,
who has to apply for the grant?
I think, well, I would say, I don't know if it's the same grant. The township will probably already applies for the similar grant for different reasons. The Historical Society right now doesn't have any grants that we're applying for. It could be a Keystone grant, but I'm not sure.
So I know we've used one for the Bartram Bridge.
Right, that's what I thought.
And I don't know if we can apply for another one while we're still in the process of it. I mean, it's been approved. I think it
Right.
was last year, but we haven't spent all the funds yet, so. But we're using one for Bartram Bridge.
Right.
We're doing that work for structural work.
So, yeah, so that's what I was pursuing it from the Historical Society, because that's who did it the last time with the Delaware County Planning Commission.
okay.
So I'm thinking that that would be the route to go.
Do we want to
That
just,
would help a lot in our.
do we want to just
What we're
hold
doing.
this item over?
Yes,
for
just
next
let it
month?
go. I just brought that. You didn't even need to discuss it again until I have more information.
Well, I
on it.
put it on the minutes. That's why I came up
Yeah,
again.
okay. And that
All
is
right.
the update.
Then we have an item to discuss how other committees may affect our decision as to which properties we pursue and don't pursue. For anybody who doesn't know what this is about, Kathy and Donna went before the Planning Commission with two of our properties that were not put forward by the owners, and in fact, were not supported by the owners. And it didn't go as well as we would have liked. And my impression from watching it was they don't really care if properties get demolished as if the owners want to do that. So,
I think that the large question was that they were not aware of the ordinance. They were not, kind of didn't do their homework, I would say, on what our ordinance has in it, what it was about, all the rules and regulations.
yes,
It was approved. Both properties were approved by the Delaware County Planning Commission.
they seemed pretty clear that if the owner wasn't behind it,
Yes.
they weren't interested.
Well,
which-
basically said they would never vote for one.
Which I
So-
find a little ironic because their whole job kind of consists of doing things that the owners may not want, or advising on what can and can't be done, which isn't really what our,
And
you
the
know,
second property wasn't even presented.
No, I didn't present that
It
because.
was a no, it was
they
a no
objected,
before
they didn't want
presented.
They still go on, just with whatever they write down, and I think that they are going to have a workshop about our ordinance where they're informed,
I mean,
spoon-fed about what the ordinance is about. They have to learn about it from the solicitor, what actually is contained within it, so that they understand that part of it. Doesn't mean it's gonna change the minds of
They can
people
still
who don't
vote how they-
agree with that.
they can still vote how they want.
Yes,
And
and it can still go.
hopefully they take into account that what our agenda does, what our commission does and what our ordinance does and what it doesn't do, which I think you did a very nice job of trying to explain. I mean, I think my position would be that we could proceed as is, and if we have properties that aren't supported by the owners, we still put them forward and we see where we wind up, see if it.
Oh,
see if the
definitely,
position
yeah.
changes.
Yes,
Yeah,
there's so
I'm
many
gonna-
that are, yeah.
I just want to remind you, their role is as a recommending body. You know,
They're advisory as well,
they're advisory as well, yes.
but I think they carry weight.
They do carry weight. I have made the board aware of the situation and the board agrees with me that we want to make sure that they're more educated on the ordinance that you operate under so that they understand how it works and what it means, because I felt like they were not hearing what the whole thing was. I think they were feeling like it stopped somebody from going forward with demolition. This ordinance does not keep somebody from going forward with demolition. It gives you the opportunity to work with that property owner to hopefully keep it from going forward. But at the end of the day, if you can't come up with something and they can't come up with something, it does not keep them from doing that. It just, it does slow the process down, but it's a relatively short slowdown.
And they seemed rather hung up on that as well. They
Yeah.
didn't want anything that would
Yeah.
impact upon.
Well, I understand. That's why we're going to be going over the ordinance with them so that they understand very specifically what the ordinance says and what their role is in carrying out the ordinances of the township.
Well, and I think Kathy did a decent job explaining that.
Yeah.
I think maybe the time of the meeting, you know, the meeting went rather long and they were quite dismissive of the presentation, just to be direct. But I don't think they understood it clearly, even though it was clearly stated by multiple people that it's not a preventative, it's a, you know, it's a slowdown
Yeah.
to discuss, find solutions, and if that's what is going to proceed, if that's what the owner wants, then there's no rule on the books now stopping it,
Yeah.
but I think, to learn more about it.
They are.
That's the reason why I've
Yeah.
asked the board for permission
Yeah.
to send the solicitor
Mhm.
to the planning commission to do the training.
Yeah,
Because he from us, probably they form the
Well-
kind of lay person, not inside the township. Point, but then the town will draft whatever
yeah.
the equation.
Right, yeah, there's two different things going on there. There's that they don't understand. There's also the feeling that they don't do their homework, that they weren't prepared. And I think that was partly what I was frustrated with,
But you
because
cannot tell them that.
no, but they should know that, because we get an agenda, we're prepared, we look it over, we read what's on the agenda. I mean, I know Frank did when the homeowner presented the addition to their property. We could have grilled them, but we didn't need to. We didn't need to go through that because we read through all the plans and Frank knew that it was not going to go contrary to the historic part of it. So I think that there's two different things going on, and I think that the one person stating that they never wanted the ordinance, they didn't agree with it, but they voted it in. So to me, that's a bias that is going to be hard to overcome going forward. So that is part of the problem. Well, that's my point. It's not, but it was said. So that.
Let me
makes it-
say that I suspect that there are some sitting on this commission that don't like the way the ordinance is written. I know because I've had conversations with a couple of you, but, and we've gone over it and we've said, this is how the ordinance functions.
Mhm.
And this is how we have to play the game at this point. And so, you know, and that's just how it is. And that we need to have that same conversation with the other groups so that they understand
Yeah.
that their role really is to look at it against the ordinance. Does it meet the ordinance requirements? And if it doesn't meet the ordinance requirements, then they should
Mhm.
make a recommendation not to move it forward. But if it meets the ordinance requirements, then I think there is some level of, you know, I mean, obviously there's personal choice, but you can't always have personal choice, huh?
Do we have a time frame in which we think they'll get a little more information about this?
I know that the solicitor is trying to put a time together that he can be there. I don't know if it'll be this month. And they've talked about trying to do it as a training workshop section, separate and apart from their
Okay.
meeting, depending on how much is on their agenda. I think they have another heavy month this month. And so they were looking at trying to find a way to do it so that they could just do a workshop that they would come in and do the
Alright.
training.
So maybe the way to proceed is to not submit 6 North Newtown, which is opposed by the owner.
Correct. I've
Immediately.
submit the others that are being submitted are all by the
We'll
homeowners.
push through the ones that are owner supported.
So
And,
they-
and we'll
so
give
they're-
a month or so before pushing another one through them that is not owner supported.
Seems reasonable.
And
All right.
the bottom line is the township actually has, when it comes up to the historical property, the guys upstairs in the permit department, they know it's a historical property and they're gonna have their say anyway.
That is sort of how we're operating.
That's how it's been.
Anyways,
So
That,
yes,
But they
Well,
might
well,
down just by zoning,
Yeah,
necessarily
Yep.
historical.
yeah.
So if some come forward to do or something, zoning is permitted, full to say, thanks, so they work in it. Do much,
No, so historical will come to us.
but that's another thing.
and on the other side of the educating part of it, I did talk with Leonard Altieri about exactly the criteria that we need to state when we present for these applications, so that they're not just catered to whatever group. It should be the same information. So I think we're gonna discuss that. Maybe he mentioned something about getting together and with us so that we're all on the same page. This is what you present. You don't have to do something different every time we go. This is the same material. And when we do the supervisors, we can put our information up on we can have the pictures as we
You
go,
can, you
correct?
can absolutely.
And that would probably help them as well to visualize
You,
it.
and you can put a packet together. And I encourage you to,
Mhm.
that shows, this is the house,
Mhm.
this is, or property, I should say, because it may be a barn, it may be, it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be just a house, but whatever the structure is, or whatever the property is, this particular whatever is the reason why we think it ought to be, it meets qualification number 4, or it meets qualification number 5, and here's why.
We could have put them up, yes.
And you can just put it up, and if you can show a picture as to why, or you can show verbiage as to why, I think that gives you the strongest case in saying that it should or shouldn't be, or but in case you're
staying on
wanting to say it
topic.
should
Yep.
be.
who would I reach out to, or who would Kathy reach out to find out what format would be preferable be given to the
And who to
township in
send
this?
it.
So we are okay for it coming in a Word document, we have all the Microsoft products, so you can, if you put it in a PowerPoint, you put it in if you put it in a PDF, we're gonna change it to a PDF no matter what you give it to us.
Yep.
But when we change it to a PDF, we do it in the software that's in our for our system, and we know that we have. We know that it's done the way it will work best for our system, but as long as it's a Microsoft product, we can pretty much do it. Some people have tried some Google Docs and things like that, and we've worked on those, but the Microsoft products are the ones that do the best for us.
Yeah, I was kind of curious whether we want to kick it into a horizontal format or something rather than the standard.
If you're doing pictures, horizontal's fine. If you're doing text, vertical's fine.
You'll just blow it.
You'll just blow it.
Okay, then let's move to old business. And we have it on here again to kind of discuss where the properties that you've submitted currently are. I am
Yeah,
showing,
I'm supposed to let you know these before, and I have a question about the ones that I submitted. That's what currently submitted for consideration.
I'm showing we have two going to the supervisors meeting, the 24th, the
Right.
28 paper mill on the 120 Newtown Street Road.
Right.
And then and then I'm showing that we have the two that just went through planning that will go to the supervisors to vote for publication at some point. We don't know when yet.
right,
And then I'm showing the 5 others that we've done that have, they don't appear that they've gone to the supervisors even for the initial review yet.
right. Okay, that's the status on the existing ones. And then 3 or 4 were submitted by the homeowners a week or 2 ago. And in our ordinance, it states that unless someone other than the homeowner files the application, they have to notify and we hold the hearing here. So if the owner, it says that if the owner files the application, we do not have to notify them and hold a hearing here. I'm trying to figure out how.
Well, we
If
still
we
have,
have the applications, because they don't need to come. It says in there that, I'm trying to find exactly where it is. Verify the procedure.
What notifications?
Unless a property is proposed by the owner, such owners shall be notified upon the proposal or receipt of a proposal that their property be placed on, removed from, or reclassified on the inventory, and be asked to respond to such proposal within 30 days. They're the applicants, are the homeowners.
okay,
So technically, they wouldn't be asked that 30 days or to respond to the application.
But wouldn't the neighbors still need to be notified?
Not, it says nothing in this meeting about ours. At least 30 days before holding a public meeting to consider the proposal, the Historic Commission shall send notice to the owner of the property. Well, in this case, the owner submitted the application. Such notice shall include the date, time, and place of the public meeting at which the Historic Commission will consider the proposed action. Notice shall be sent to the registered owner's last known address, as the same appears in the real estate tax records, and sent to the owner. And that's when the owner hasn't applied. Any interested party can submit testimony, but there's no mention when the owner puts the application in that anybody else has to be notified, which would mean that they would be should be able to be quickly.
Undermine the public story.
It's only 75 years old.
No, I
These are
understand
200.
that, but times property might be. Until, so like I dropped my application
Mm-hmm.
and now it's become account for years. But if I commission.
But that can be done right away. That could have been brought right here tonight.
No, I'm asking.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have to do it, but we don't have to do a 30-day notification. We can just,
No.
I have all 4 of them. We could have gone through each one, is what I'm saying, because the application was done by the homeowner, all in favor. So as long, and they were all in the book that we already voted to approve those applications, should they come in.
Well, why don't we put those 4 on the new business for next month? If any notification needs to happen, it can happen during that month. If it doesn't, I get what you're saying.
But can
Yeah,
you
they don't
say
have to.
if the owner already knows that.
Why do we delay? If you're trying to save time on some of these, on some of the ones that.
I think I just pulled it up, so I just
Mhm.
wanted to make sure I'm speaking. So you're talking under procedure F, under F for procedures.
Where it says
Where-
unless, yes, number
Yeah.
1.
So number 1 is that the number 1 statement is a separate statement that says if the property owner is the one that submits it, there's not a requirement to ask the property owner for a proposal, right? I mean, they
Yeah,
shall be
30
notified
days,
on the
right.
proposal or a receipt of the proposal that their property has been placed or removed from the classification on the inventory. and be asked to respond to such proposal. So that's number one. So,
Mhm.
but number two, and I don't think number two is, I mean, yes, it's contingent on number one, but it goes on and says, at least 30 days before holding the public meeting to consider the proposal, the Historic Commission shall send notice to the property owner.
Only.
Huh? Yeah, so, but
Only,
we
so
have to
that could be
send,
done before, that could be done when the application goes in.
but we still have to have the 30-day notice. The 30, it doesn't say the 30-day notice is waived.
No, but you could do that when the application goes in, when the homeowner does it, correct?
Yes.
Could it be amended to waive it if they apply?
Well, we can amend any ordinance, but you have to amend the ordinance.
Well, I'm saying.
But,
it
I mean,
seems
I
like-
can't,
won't
I
be
can't
quick.
amend a procedure
No,
without amending the ordinance.
Yeah, but I mean, that sounds like an opportunity to just fast track something if somebody wants it.
right.
If you
that-
would waive that step.
It
Or
would be good.
if they're turned in, it would essentially, yeah, I'm trying to figure out if you turn
I
them
think the
in,
key is,
the 30 days is the tough part.
I think the key is, the first piece is that, yes, they can do it. I mean, the first piece is if the property owner is not the applicant, that we have to give them a chance to respond to the proposal. And it needs to be at least 30 days. They have to respond within 30 days. The second piece is that from that, the commission, and you could direct staff, so here's where it comes back. The Historic Commission will consider the proposed action. So we have to have such notice has to include the date, time, and place of the public meeting, right?
Mhm.
So in order for us to do that, typically we bring it before you and you say, at the meeting of July, whatever, I don't have it right in front of me. We're going to do properties X, Y, and Z. And as long as that's 30 days, then we would give them notice, they would have that. If not, then you would have to set it for the one in August. Now, and that's probably more of an issue in February when there's only 28 or 29 days than it is in most months. That being said, the second issue, the second thing is, and I need to get a legal answer on this. Could you say that when a property owner submits the form themselves, that the staff would take it upon themselves to notify them to the next meeting? But that means that the staff is making a decision for you as the commission as to what you're going to hear and when, versus you having the authority to decide whether you're going to hear it and when. Does that,
Yes.
you understand what the difference is?
So it would be, yes. We did, if these properties though are in the inventory that we have voted to approve all applications that came in, which we did, if you recall, we voted to approve any that came in that were in the inventory of 1984. So if they are, trying to make this simpler, picking the ones that would go.
Yeah, the
first.
question
If they
is,
are, then-
are you comfortable? Like, and here's what I think that we would need direction from you. And I'm not saying this is gonna happen. But let's say you pick these four and you want them on the next, right? So we go to put them on the next meeting. And then I get 3 applications more from property owners
Mhm.
between now and then. And assuming that there's 30 days, and there's not, I just looked at it, there's actually only 29 days between now and the next meeting. But assuming that there was 30 days, if I got it, I could, and you say you gave us permission, you would then have 7 possible properties that you were taking information on the same night. This,
We wouldn't though. See, I guess that is the part, which is originally why I said to have them listed on this agenda. Because I could have run through them who submitted, what homeowner submitted during the month an application. And then, so they were familiar with it, but, which is what we did. And we started to bypass that because we had them already documented as historic in here.
Mhm.
So basically the homeowners filled it out, the information's there. Who are we, who are you notifying other than the homeowner and putting it on our agenda? Like, how would anyone know there's a public hearing?
Well, it's on the agenda. I mean,
But
anybody,
you're not sending out like you do for certain things where you notify neighbors or you notify.
no,
people.
that
This is-
doesn't happen until we get into the true public hearing that's before the Board of Supervisors.
Right,
It's not for your meeting,
right.
it's for their meeting. So, but my point is, so like if you were to make a decision, let's assume that you wanted to make the decision that every property that a property owner submits is on your next agenda. Let's, assuming that it meets the 30-day requirement. We could do that. The challenge would be, is there a point which if you decided you were going to have 5 hearings in a night or 5 properties that you were going to address in one night, and I happened to get 5 more that met the requirements of the 30 days, are you comfortable doing 10 in that night? I'm all of a sudden, I'm making a decision for you on your agenda, how many you would have before you. Do you understand what
We could say yes, and we could say put a cap.
well, that would be my other comment would be, you could say, yes, that staff has the authority to add it to our agenda with the amount, knowing that it can't be more than 5 a night, can't be more than 6 a night, whatever that number would be. Or it comes before you and then you determine which agenda you want to put it on. And then you put it on an agenda to hear it. I'm hearing you want to try to streamline the process and move it more quickly. I'm trying to figure out a way to do that, but I think my biggest concern would be, I all of a sudden, because if you just say, put it on our next agenda, and I look at it and it falls, and I end up having to put 10 properties, now all of a sudden, the meeting, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but if you're working on multiple properties,
Mhm.
you don't know when a property owner is going to submit. They may all submit within a week of each other, and now all of a sudden we have this. That's all I'm saying. I think there
No, I
should be,
understand what you're saying.
I
But,
think there
um,
should be some parameters you give us, not just tell the staff to just put it on the next, is my point.
Right, and I think we have to think it through because.
30 days. Where do
It's-
we count those 30 days?
Yeah, that would be,
I would count 30 days from the time that there has to be a 30 days. It says at least 30 days before holding a public meeting to consider the proposal to the Historic Commission shall send notice to the property owner. So we would have to have some way of sending notice to that property owner 30 days before you wanted it on your agenda.
So are you saying I'm fine with the proposal of just having you guys feed them in with a cap.
Yeah.
But am I correct in what I heard before that if we decide we want to do these 4 today, we can't actually get them on next month? Even
I
though
don't
we
know
could-
whether Heather's notified them already for next month, but I'm looking at it, if
Or 28.
today is the
Might.
11th. Your next meeting is on the 9th. And quick math tells me that's not 30 days because
It's
June
4 weeks,
happens
yeah.
to be a 30-day month. And the question, yes, the question is, did Heather give notice at that time that this was going to be on the July meeting? And I don't know that answer.
Well, why don't we find out?
okay.
And this would be an argument for streamlining it
Yes,
because it would already be done.
yes.
So,
And it would get us the ability to do things in February, which we're not going to have if we're doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
Except that it still isn't clarifying the unless a property is proposed by the owner part of this, which
Well,
would
that,
mean
there's a.
that there is some caveat for not, when the homeowner does it. It sounds like all this other is when the homeowner doesn't put the application in.
But it's not saying.
There's
it's-
nothing
it's-
real
One is not contingent on two,
Right.
or two is not contingent on one. The two is a second procedure. The first procedure is that that unless the property is proposed by the owner, such owner shall be notified upon the proposal. So we would have to do that as soon as we received it. And that their property will be placed on, removed, or classification of the inventory. They will be asked to respond to such proposal within 30 days. So they have 30 days, it puts that property owner on a clock. That's what that does. So the property owner can't say, well, I want to take 60 days. We've given them a limit. The second thing is, it doesn't say, this doesn't have the caveat that the property owner knows or doesn't know. It says at least 30 days prior to the meeting in which you're going to consider a proposal. Then we have to notify the owner of the property on your behalf that it's going to be on your agenda. So we have 30 days that we have to have notified the property owner ahead of time prior to your meeting. So the advantage of doing what we had talked about a few minutes ago, of you giving staff the authority, is that when there's not 30, when like this month, there's not 30 days between the two meetings, because the second Tuesday happens to fall early in the month next month. You can take an action at the next month's meeting. It doesn't have to go out to the August. And I can't answer what Heather did on these 4 that were
Right.
submitted last week, whether she's already given the 30-day notice or not. I
No,
won't know
but
that
it
until I
should-
talk
but
to her
it-
tomorrow.
Yes, that seems like a question for tomorrow.
But here's what I can say. If she has notified, we would be putting them on the July meeting.
All right.
And then we're back to. This is.
There's
it's
no
like-
getting
it's a
around
loop.
sending the 30-day notice.
No, but it's a loop. It's a loop of, so
So Kathy, when you, say
What-
if you have 3 that you want to put on, you communicate
it's not
that
me.
to
The
Heather
homeowner wants it.
or the
They don't want
homeowner.
to be, they don't need to be notified. And I go out and I speak to these homeowners. So this is
Okay.
not, they're not coming, trust me.
Yeah,
And help them fill it out. So,
but then you give that to Heather. And that would be part of
right.
whatever.
It should, I guess, say, unless a property is proposed by the owner. That is what will happen, all this other stuff. And that should say number 2, if the property is proposed by the owner, the following will take place. And that's what should be laid out, because it's a different issue.
Well, I think it
Apparently,
doesn't
because
matter
we accept
it
it.
doesn't matter who sends it in for
But
number
maybe
2.
at the time of the application, the 30 days starts.
The 30 days for them to notify.
Well,
The thing is, it's a
The
public
notification
hearing.
still has to happen
They have to be told.
under our.
Right, so you have to have a public hearing.
There's a public meeting. And so
Right.
all we have to do is give notice 30 days prior to the public meeting that they're going to be on the agenda. That would need to be done no matter whether the property owner submitted it or somebody else submitted it. Because it doesn't have to be you, right? I mean, it can be the commit, if I recall right, I mean, even the Board of Supervisors could submit one that they thought ought to be.
Sure.
You know, so this isn't limited to just you and or the property owner. But if the property owner isn't the person, number 1 says they have to be given, they have 30 days to respond. It's a very clear piece. The second piece says we need to notify them 30 days prior to the public meeting that they're going to be on the meeting. Any property, whether you submit it, whether the property owner submits it, whether the Board of Supervisors submits it. That's how I interpret what's here. I will verify that with the
I know,
solicitor.
it's confusing.
But typically, unless it, when, if typically, if in a procedure, unless the procedure refers back to a prior procedure, the next thing stands on its own, and it has to be done on its own.
So to make it faster for us would be, because in the end, if you do the 30, you should be able to do, if you've ever watched Leonard, run through the ones that were in this inventory. I should just be able to call out the address, and we vote. Call out the next address on this that we've
Well,
investigated.
I'm gonna say no.
But
Because,
we already voted that the inventory was
I understand.
applicable.
yeah, I understand that, but you have got to, because the next thing that says here, it says, procedure number 4, following the public meeting, the Historic Commission shall present a written report to the Board of Supervisors, the applicant, and the owner within 20 days of the close of the public meeting, basing the recommendation upon the criteria for the designation established in the chapter. You've got to have some level of discussion as a group to be able to come up with what that is. Even though you've said that the 100 properties are X, Y, and Z, you are the ones that you think ought to be on that list. You have to still give.
Publicly, you're saying we can't create our own pamphlets that everybody is given information on about each property so that
But you gotta
can vote. on that
You're
one.
creating a case, right? And you have to do that as a public.
Because it's public is what you're
You're
saying.
correct. Like you can't come in here and have created a report privately that you all look at that's not available to the public and vote on that report and say that's what we're going on, because that's not a public process. Has to be a public process. The whole part of this is somebody should be presenting publicly why this property meets the criteria that you say it meets, or, what I always use the trim model because that's the one I can remember. But if they have this type of trim and this trim is something that has historic value, you state that, you show it, and you give a reason, like, it's not just that it is, but according to this group, this is a very specific historic
Right.
value of what
Well,
this
that's
is.
the information that we have. So every property that applies at this point, all that information is documented, and that is what's presented when I run through it
Yes,
quickly. So you could technically
As long as
easily
we run through it
do,
publicly.
yes.
as long as you run through
You
it
could easily
publicly.
do
Yep.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if we know in advance. The ones that are surprises, you might not. But as of this point, all the ones we're familiar with that are coming forward don't require a lengthy presentation, because as you can see, we provide that
Long as we-
multiple times.
As long as we do a
That's
presentation.
frustrating. yeah.
My thought would be we should just start planning these 2 months out. Assuming that Heather hasn't notified, we should say that we're gonna put these on the August. And we should spend this month putting together a little packet on them so that when we meet and present them, we have
You all
the
have it.
information ready to go, so we can issue it over to the township, the week
At
after.
at the same time, we try to reach out and make owners. Give a land, there is a lot of time in between. Application filed and doing, discussed. So the more you get in, honestly.
No, and that's why I thought we could do quite a few of them, yes. These aren't the questionables, and there may be those. Yes, they're the hard ones.
Absolutely, absolutely. When the homeowner opposes it, it's a whole different
Yeah.
conversation. I suspect that, if a homeowner is not opposing, you guys probably could knock out 5 or 6 or 7 in an evening in 30 minutes, 5 minutes apiece, give a quick report of what it is. If your report's written ahead of time and you have it attached to your agenda, you could actually pull it up, say, according to this, I would cover the 5, 6 criteria that are
Mhm.
specifically covered. Here's why we think these things, and then I would move on. I don't think this has to be I mean, I'm not asking for a 30-minute presentation on each one. I think you can do this in a lot less time. I just think that you have to remember, you're basically putting forward a case to the supervisors, a case to the applicant, and a case to the homeowner as to why you think this is or is not a property that should be on the historic register. And so, you know, and right now, I don't think we're removing any, we're just trying to get them on. So I don't think we have to worry about spending much time on that, getting something off. But for putting it on, I think that if we have properties that the homeowner is willing, I think it's a lot easier, but you still need to publicly state why you're putting that on.
Sounds reasonable.
Wait a minute. I know you're pretty good. So. The homeowner's the one, or the owner needs the 30 days? Because you're not publicly notifying anybody on the day the application is turned in. So,
No, we're stating that it's saying that we need to send notice to the homeowner or to the owner of the property 30 days prior to the public meeting. That's what it says.
okay, so it's just to
Even
the
if the
homeowner.
homeowner, so if homeowner Jones comes in and submits an application today, I can't put it, if I do my count right, I can't put it on the July meeting. I have to put it on the August meeting because I have to give at least 30 days before the thing. So if I get an application and we were going to do that, we would put it on your August meeting. If you pass a motion tonight that says that the township staff can put up to whatever number you want on that, and if it's proper, maybe you would say, we would do 5 that are property owner approved already, or like property owner as the applicant, and we would do 3 that aren't, or like, you know, you could give us some parameters to work in. Maybe you would say you would do 10 if they're all property owner applicants, but you don't want to do 10 if one of them is your application and the property owner may be against it, right? You know, so that may be a different story. So you may just tell us this many if the property owner is the applicant, if we have no others, and if there are others, then it's this many. That's all I'm saying.
I see the risk.
No, I was looking at the wording.
I think for whatever reason, I deny, don't feel it's appropriate to.
Right.
And then I have the right to be here and contest what you think. I insist that it has to be done. We can have a conversation. No, this is not going to happen. I guess the logic for these 3 days and notify the homeowner is just that. Before you cross. And if everyone agrees for good or bad, it moves fast. But I don't think I understand your point. You feel like we know this is
No, I understand that point. Yeah. In some cases we do, yes. And that's, I guess, what I was, and I also didn't think the wording in the ordinance was very clear on that. So that's why when I was reading it, I didn't get that it was clear for either way that it went. And then public, when you say a public hearing, there's one point, see, I get confused with that as well. When the supervisors publicize, isn't there a period where it's a period of time that it's publicized? It's not publicized the day the agenda is made up and given, that's probably 2 days notice that it's public. So isn't there a point when the supervisors have a meeting, they do something that's
When they,
for
because
a month?
it's a zoning map amendment. I think they have to advertise it at least 2 times in the paper,
That's what
and it has to be, I think, within 14 days of the actual meeting. So there's all kinds of requirements on that end that we will take care of and we will make sure happen. This one I will verify with the solicitor that I'm interpreting this right, but if I'm interpreting this correctly, we have to give the property owner 30-day notice prior, even if they're the applicant,
Mhm.
prior to it being on,
On our meetings, because our meetings are public. So that's really the public part of
yeah,
it.
yeah.
We forget the public because.
No, because we
But
do
yeah,
get it.
actually public.
Okay.
And the neighbors are
that's-
notified at this Board of Supervisors meeting?
The neighbors, so the neighbors will be made aware, yes, for sure by the supervisors meeting when we go to do that. Usually even before it goes to the planning commission, I think we post the property ahead of time that that's going to be the case. I have to look back at all the
Yeah, I didn't know that.
requirements. So,
So do we want to, for the four that we're talking about, find out if they were submitted or not, or if people were notified?
Well, if they're going to be, yeah, they'll
And
definitely
do we
be by
want,
next
and do we want
month.
to talk, and do we want to vote next month on strategy for
Mhm.
going forward
That works.
so that we can we can have an interpretation done on what the text actually means?
okay,
Sounds good.
One thing you could also ask if it's possible for applicants on might be out, maybe they can waive it if they. Application point case, I waive it if they notice.
Can we do that?
Just to simplify things.
I don't. The ordinance doesn't give that option. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but the ordinance doesn't give that option, so I don't think that we can arbitrarily. Because let's just take, for instance, let's say if two things happen. Let's say a property owner submits and it happens to be a property that's not on your list, and we're saying we're gonna do it. They turn around and we streamline that process because the owner submitted and now you deny it. They're gonna say, I didn't get my due process because I wasn't given a full 30-day notice, and so but I hear you, but they could come back and say, but your ordinance doesn't allow for the waiver. And
Yeah.
so I don't know that we would want to do that. But look, there's a reason why I'm not the lawyer. I'm just the township manager. And I will talk to our solicitor and I'll verify that my interpretation of the law is correct. I've been wrong before. But usually I'm not far off. So I think I'm probably pretty close, but no, I think that's a fair thing. And I will ask, can it be waived?
Because the timing sometimes during the month,
Mm.
when you submit, when things, the calendar changes. So the 10 days to be read it, if there is a waiver.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're looking here, just if it would have been submitted today, somebody thinking it's a month prior to your next meeting.
Right.
The facts are, it's not 30 days, and so it's a problem. And I'm looking here going into, well, August would be fine, but it happens, looks like it happens like every other month. It's kind of off. It's just the way it falls.
I think we put an amendment in for that too.
Well,
That was a year or two ago.
Or we just start planning 2 months ahead,
Yeah,
and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What comes.
But I will
Yeah.
get clarification.
Okay.
I mean, I will try to do that within the next 24 hours as well. And then that way I know what we can and can't do from a staff standpoint, and I'll try to put it out to you as a team.
Alrighty then. I just forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, well.
more to say. I think
Do we have anything for next month that we want to capture? I didn't know that we have anything from this meeting that we need to follow up on.
No, I think figuring out the status of those four and whether we're gonna bump into August with those or whether we can do those next month, and if we are gonna do them next month, then we should figure out what we want to do in August before next month's meeting. And I am going to be out of town next month.
Okay.
So
You mean July?
I'm gonna be out of, yeah, I'll be away in July. Who would I need to talk to about having a dial-in or?
Heather, I think, is your all support person, so I would reach out to Heather Hastings. in the office.
Yeah, I'll be available. I just won't be physically in this state.
Oh,
So,
okay, that's fine.
and my understanding is somebody else can run the meeting or.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's usually easier to let somebody else run the meeting if you're not here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would much prefer it.
Yeah.
It's always challenging to run it remotely.
Yeah,
Well, then I think we're at the public comment stage and we don't have a public today, so we can note that there is no public and we won't have a comment. And then if there are no other questions or no new business, I would make a motion that we adjourn.
second.
All righty. All in favor?
Uh,
All opposed? Well, that's that.